judge's office.
My name is Sybil Richardson, and my family, the Richardson family, is awaiting on a ruling from Judge Rogers regarding my husband's matter.
I am here with the brilliant director, Garrett Bradley.
Thanks for being here with me.
So I want to frame this conversation around your journey as an artist, because I think your movie Time is a work of art. And I don't think you remember this, you might not, where when we first talked, it was a phone call, and you were saying, I don't know whether I want to be a documentary filmmaker or a fine artist. Do you remember this?
Yeah, vaguely.
Here in this beautiful film, you've done both. It is a work of nonfiction, but it's also a work of art. I'd love to hear about your beginnings. Both your parents were artists, right?
Yeah, they're both painters. My dad's 20 years older than my mom, so they come from really different, they were married for 1 year.
Oh, wow.
And they come from really different worlds and kind of backgrounds. But both, I think, were interested in thinking about abstraction from two really different spaces. My mom uses a lot of language and a lot of words in her paintings that are abstract. And so there's sort of this question of what the relationship is between something that's literal and something that exists outside of that space. And I think for my dad, abstraction was something, he has very, very sort of regimented ideas about sort of daring somebody to attach his identity, who he is as a Black man, to his work, through abstraction. And I think both of them, as a result of who they were, my mom being a white woman, my dad being a Black man, moving through the world with their practices, presented different opportunities and different challenges. And myself, obviously, being a combination of both of them, I was very, I think, attuned to what I was up against in the world, and how to try to make space for myself, but doing it in a way that was, I think, inherently connected to community, that even if as a painter, yes, it's a practice of solitude, but you're so reliant on and so in need of your community and being in conversation with other artists. And I think for me as a filmmaker, that has been the biggest thing that has driven me, is understanding the role of community.
But I see you, when we have these phone calls, you're in Joshua Tree, you're in New York. The last time we talked, you were doing the installation at the Museum of Modern Art with the big, pan to the right, and there's giant Garrett Bradley thing in the entrance of the museum. And I'm like, oh, okay. This is just another day in Garrett Bradley's life. But I say that because I always see you surrounded by artists, some of them in the nonfiction world, but some of them in the fine art world, and some of them just artists in the world. Is that important to you?
I think to a certain extent, I have a community of people that are all really invested in their own practice and what they're doing, and that we find community in that, because I think what's so essential is having an exchange, being able to talk with people about what you're thinking about and getting to understand what they're thinking about and coming up with new conclusions. Living in that gray area that exists between you and other people is so crucial to pushing myself as an individual.
So let's talk about how you translate that into your work. I work in nonfiction too, and I know what it's like when you show up and you're about to shoot. And everyone watching the movie is right in the moment, but when you show up, you got boxes and cameras and batteries and all that kind of stuff. And there's a routine to the way nonfiction works. Forget the technicality of being a director and more about, I'm going back to you as an artist. How do you approach that day?
Well, working really in any space for me that involves a camera, it's such a practice in honoring the present moment and knowing how to, when I say honor it, I don't mean just make the best use of it, but to really evoke the greatness of it, And those things can be subtle, And I think in order to tap into those subtleties, for me, I've always had to a certain extent, plan a lot so that I completely can give myself to the chaos of a moment, of something that's unpredictable.
So you want to be open and vulnerable, just feel what's going on before the technical stuff takes over.
So with Time, for instance, it was really important for me to think about, okay, first I always start with conversations with people. Why do you want to make this film, right? What is it? What is important about doing this? And Fox and Rob and the family said over and over again, our story is the story of 2.3 million American families, and we feel that our story can offer hope. And so in my mind, I'm saying to myself, okay, number one, that is in alignment with the intention for me as well, so that's a good thing. Number two, hope is kind of a vague thing, but it's clearly what's so important to them, and there's something there. So how do I show hope? And like, what does hope look like for them and their family? And so I think about that a lot. I spend time with the family, and it really boiled down, I think, to these three things. It was unity. It was their ability to stay together over the course of 21 years. It was love, right? And it was also their individuality and who they were as individuals amidst a system that was trying to thwart that. And so when I'm starting the day, which of those three things are we showing? Or maybe it's all three of those things at the same time. But I know there's some kind of guiding force that then allows me to not have to be in control of anything, but at least know to a certain extent that my intention is in alignment with something that's real and that is anchoring.
Why couldn't I have talked to you 30 years ago when I was starting out? I could have used this for my movie. I mean, it's so beautiful, and I mean it. It's like, you don't start with the technicality. And I mean, for all these people who are watching this who are filmmakers, it's so easy to say, well, what lens do you want? Where do you want to put the camera? What kind of lights do you want? Do you want to mount in the car? And all those things take over. And what you're saying is, you start with a core intention for your day. And you want to be, and also you want to sit in that room, wherever that is, the car, or Fox's office, and you say, okay, what's going on here? How do I feel this? And how does that connect to that core intention? That's so beautiful.
Yeah, and then the lens stuff is like, it's fun because it can just reinforce the things that you hopefully already know, And the zoom lens for me was such a powerful sort of realization for my practice because it was still, but it also moved, but it moved in a way that I think feels very, very similar to what concentration feels like.
Listen, my story is the story of over 2 million people in the United States of America that are falling prey to the incarceration of poor people and people of color.
It's so interesting because all that tone we're talking about and all the intention, and it's interesting when people say, oh, that's the movie about incarceration. I'm like, well, and yet that idea is all around it, and yet it's also not in it. How do you deal with that, making it part of the film and also not in the film, and why?
It was really important, and I'm really grateful to you and to Concordia and to everybody who really, and to Gabe.
Gabe's the editor.
Yeah, Gabe Rhodes, who cut the film, for like everyone just saying, it's okay to lean into the human experience. It's okay to lean into this as a love story that is also deeply affected by incarceration, and that if we can do that, we can hopefully open up a portal, open up an additional entry point into incarceration, but from a human experience, I
want my man. And ain't nothing else pacifying me. Ain't no further on up the road. Ain't no, I think y'all wonderful. Y'all doing a great job. I want my family home. I want my family together. I want my children to have their daddy. And I wanted him before my twins turn 18.
I wish people watching this could have been at this first screening at Sundance. I mean, the woman next to me was sobbing uncontrollably, and I was sobbing too. It was so emotional, and Fox and Rob and all the kids were there. It was very brave of you not to make it just like any other film. You wanted to make it the film you wanted to make. I want to talk about the scene where Fox finally lets her frustration out. She's at her desk, and there's a long take where she's patient, calling about her husband and what the status is, and then she just lets it go. And it's funny, my wife and I were just talking about this idea of everyone has their story and everyone has their truth. And it felt to me like her truth came out.
Success is the best revenge. Success is the best revenge. I'm like one of those little retarded children. Success is the best revenge. You're gonna get them, Fox. You're gonna get them. You're gonna show them that they can't treat human life this way. Success is the best revenge. Just hang in there, because when you get them home, they gonna pay, they gonna pay, they gonna pay. They gonna fucking pay. God damn.
Yeah, I mean, I think that shooting it in the moment for me felt like, fuck yeah, get it, totally understand, like, been waiting for this moment, right? Because it's what, it's remarkable that she had the amount of control that it takes, and the amount of sort of exceptionalism and presentation that one has to have to just maneuver that system, right? It's crucial for people to understand, I think, what it takes on a day-to-day basis. And the release, as you said, is the truth. But so is the presentation, so is the control to a certain extent.
Totally, and I do feel like, for those who haven't seen the film, there is that, by the time that moment comes out, you as an audience are as frustrated as she is.
Yeah.
And so you've earned that moment, and you and Gabe had to build to that moment.
Yeah, exactly. And that is so much of the challenge of what we do, I think, as filmmakers, is like how to mimic the real world in that way, Like, how do we actually create scenes and scenarios where we understand the broader context, even, again, in the specificity of any moment. We understand these larger ideas, even if it's something that's super intimate and that's not explicit in any kind of way.
It is beyond anything I could have imagined. You've made a beautiful work of art, and I'm so grateful that you made it, that movie is out there in the world. You are a brilliant artist and a wonderful filmmaker, and thank you for doing this conversation.
Thank you, Davis. Thank you so much. Thank you to you guys all for recording this, and be safe.
Bye.
Bye.
My twins will be 18 next month. 18 years old. When their daddy got sentenced, I was 3 months pregnant. They have absolutely no idea about what it means to have a father in their house, what fathers even do.